So I think we can all understand and admit that there is a problem in our community, in our culture, in our nation, and on a global level, that there is a patriarchal society in most parts of the planet that is essentially supporting the systematic suppression of women on a large spectrum of practices and processes which have been at play for millennia. Now, we can play blame games around religion and around these sorts of things and just blame men and everything like that, but there's a good quote from someone in the Australian Navy, and they said that the standard that you walk past is the standard you accept. So we are all participants in this healing process. And I don't mean get out there and heal other people. Don't get out there and change people. It's about changing ourselves and creating opportunities for others' growth. Creating spaces to share with other people. Creating spaces where we can share what we've healed from, how we're doing, and all this sort of thing. And also, I want to mention that in the previous 3 workshops, we went through a lot of the faculties of healing and what's going on in the human body with these sorts of distortions and illnesses and imbalances and traumas and that sort of thing, how these things can be healed. And also, I want to reiterate that the human capacity for healing is infinite. All of these issues are transcendable, essentially. So, I don't want to sit here and rant about how bad things are, but I want to go into this process next with you guys and girls of how to understand how we've been personally affected by this essentially misogynistic society. And if no one knows, if someone out there doesn't know what misogyny means hatred towards women. And this patriarchal kind of system, a hatred towards women, creates also a female hatred towards men. Okay? Through these sorts of things where we can treat men as like the perpetrators of these issues, and women gives them the kind of permission essentially to dislike men in this sort of way. So,
excuse me, Tristan.
Hello.
You can also see sometimes with women actually misogynistic as well towards women.
Absolutely. And that's just this whole idea of the standard that we're also walking past is the standard we accept. So a good example there is the women who are inside the Australian Royal Academy of Medical Surgeons were also complaining to women higher up in the hierarchy, saying this is really bad, the way I'm being talked to, the way I'm being treated by the teachers is appalling. And the women higher up in the hierarchy just said that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. Deal with it or quit. Yeah? And because these men were in such a power structure where they were unshakable. Another case study I'm going to mention here, on that note, is the case study of Father John Day. Father John Day, you ever heard that name before? Okay, so he's the most famous evil man in Australia, really. Now this guy was the top Catholic priest in Victoria in the 1950s, 60s and 70s. And he created a system where he systematically was raping children for decades. And he was systematically protected by the church and by Catholic police officers in the Victorian police. Okay, so there was an amazing police officer who started getting complaints about this priest. The first time he met the priest, he pulled a car over in St Kilda in the early 60s, and the priest was in the car half naked with his pants off with 2 prostitutes. You know, and it's like that was the first time he met him. He's like, whoa, this is a crazy, dodgy, strange situation. And the other police officer with him was like, we'll just let them go, forget about it. Years later, he started getting complaints. He started interviewing children, girls and boys, who were abused and raped by this preacher. Now, this policeman gathered so much evidence from so many different children, he went to the higher up police in his area in Mildura and in Melbourne, and was instantly told to drop the case. We don't investigate priests. At the same time, he was also approached by other police officers in the force who were Catholic, who said, hey, we're a part of this team of Catholic police officers and we have a special system of protecting priests. That's what we do. Because we know priests get up to a bit of dodgy stuff sometimes and we want them to look good in our society and these are important guys in our community. And he was like, no way, I'm not getting involved with you guys. And this guy who was investigating the priest was a devout Catholic. He's a total legend. And basically, he went through this whole process where also Father John Day was protected by the Bishop of Australia and protected by the Pope. And he was never persecuted, and he retired to like Portugal or something like that. Okay, so he was completely protected by the system, and he was acutely aware that he was protected by the system, and acutely aware he was in control and could get away with all this stuff. Okay, this is a really solid example of the corrupt guru archetype setting up a system around him where he is untouchable.
And it's not just one, it's entire pedophile rings. There's
That's right.
hundreds
So
of
he's
them.
protected by the police.
Yeah.
He's also protected by the other priests. And again with the medical surgeons too, that all the men in that hierarchy are doing it and systematically protecting each other. Okay? So all the scoundrels are seeing the scoundrels in each other and going, I got your back. Let's keep doing what we're doing because it's fun. Okay? They're completely creating that separation between themselves and women and seeing women as just this commodity. Okay? And the easiest way to commoditize women is to suppress them so that they don't have enough of this beautiful goddess empowered energy and vision to keep the men in line. Okay? So we don't want to play blame games or anything like that, but that's another example of just the horrors of how this archetype has played itself out. And I want to be fully aware that dealing with people who were abused in this way as children, as adults, it's absolutely profound to see how these long-term effects of being assaulted in this way affects someone as a scar in their nervous system. I met a guy once in Victoria, and I gave him a hug, and he was really awkward about it. He's about 40 years old, and he's like, "Sorry, man, I'm just starting to try the hug thing out. I'm not used to it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I haven't really hugged people in my life before, nearly 40." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Look, yeah, I was systematically raped as a kid." Okay, and this is that damage that's also caused in the male nervous system, which creates an extreme fear and separation from people and intimacy. Because intimacy gets energetically linked with the threat of trauma to the nervous system. Okay, this is like 30 years later plus. So these priests and people like this who have done this to children are basically systematically ruining people's lives. And as well, it's important to understand how traumatizing someone can create a ripple effect where that person may go out and traumatize other people. So that person who gets hurt as a child can go into an extreme state of fear, anxiety and resentment to other people and can become a perpetrator. And so and then it could hurt other people and they can become perpetrators. So this can grow like a cancer through our communities, this sort of trauma, where the perpetrators hurt other people and just create more perpetrators. It's important to realize that being loving and caring and forgiving also creates this ripple effect too, through people. Just smiling at someone on the street can create a ripple effect of healing through many, many, many people. This sort of positivity and negativity can spread in really, really beautiful ways.
But the sad thing is that sometimes those people that are so wounded that way, the more that you love them, the more they resent you because they don't trust the love because they don't believe that they're even lovable. It gets very, very difficult to heal.
Yep, that's right. They also become completely disgusted by loving people. And they also are in a place of disgust because they don't know what it's like to feel the way you feel, so they resent you. And there's also the whole self-sabotage and self-worth issues that get created by this damage, this scarring to the nervous system. Okay, and it's really the best way to understand that is to the Brock Turner rape case in California. This year is to read her statement to the court of her long-term process. She doesn't remember the event. She woke up in ER and realised she was raped. So it's understanding that through the vagina-brain connection, her nervous system has been scarred in this way that has created basically a whole lot of separation, fear and resentment to the world around her. Okay? And this is, again, how you get this beautiful, naive, innocent, empowered, creative, focused young woman, traumatize her in this way, and she becomes lost. And this is, again, female circumcision, 200 million women in this situation.
It's like they're in fight or flight constantly.
That's right. So we call it higher baseline activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. So you're walking around in a constant state of fight or flight.